I used to think boundaries were something people talked about on podcasts but didn't really apply to real life. Like, sure, you shouldn't let your boss text you at midnight unless he's your boss, right? And he's the one who helped you land your first real job after your divorce. Yeah, classic me, always finding reasons to justify things that felt off. And I'm 29, an executive assistant in a mid-sized tech company in New York. My boss, let's call him D, is 42, married with 2 kids, and a reputation that makes people whisper genius like it's a title. When I first joined, he barely noticed me. Then one day, after a presentation, he told me I had precision that could cut glass. I laughed. He didn't. That's how it started. NNHE began looping me into everything. Investor calls, off-the-record meetings, late-night emails that ended with, "Couldn't have done this without you." It felt validating, like someone finally saw what I could do. I started waking up early just to check if he'd sent another message. Yeah, I know how that sounds. NNTHE first gift came about 6 months in, a Mont Blanc pen with my initials engraved. He said it was for making things happen behind the scenes. I remember running my thumb over the cold metal and feeling something shift inside me. Gratitude mixed with a weird kind of weight, like I owed him something. NNTHE little favors kept stacking. He'd bring me my favorite coffee without asking. He'd notice when I changed nail colors. He once told me, "You get me in ways no one else does, not even my wife." I laughed it off, but it stuck. He had this way of saying things that made you feel special and slightly disposable at the same time. People in the office noticed too. Someone joked that I was the company's first lady. I brushed it off, but every time someone looked at us too long, Dee would tilt his head and say, "Ignore them. They're just jealous. You're the only one who keeps this place running." And God help me, I believed him. It's funny, I can still remember the exact sound of his office. The low hum of the air purifier, the faint citrus smell from his cologne, the way the city lights cut through the blinds like a barcode across his desk. That room always felt both powerful and trapped. One night, after a conference dinner, we ended up in the hotel bar. I remember the clinking of glasses, the amber light bouncing off the marble counter. He told me time was the only real currency, and that he wanted to spend it wisely with people who mattered. Then he said, "You know, time belongs to us if we make it." I laughed again. He didn't. I should have seen it then, the shift from mentorship to something else. But I didn't. I was too busy enjoying the validation, too hungry to be seen as indispensable. That's the word he used all the time. You're indispensable. It sounded like security, but it was really possession. NNTHE. First time he brushed his hand against mine when passing a folder, I froze. He didn't apologize, just smiled like it was an inside joke. That tiny gesture rewired something in my head. Suddenly, every message, every meeting, every coffee run had an undertone I couldn't unhear. NNBUT. The real story, the one that made me realize what time belongs to us actually meant, started on my birthday. And that's when everything cracked open. My birthday fell on a Tuesday, right in the middle of Q3 chaos. Deadlines, audits, everyone running on caffeine and fumes. I wasn't planning to celebrate. But Dee had this thing about appreciating your team. So he told everyone there'd be cake in the break room at 4 p.m. I thought it was sweet, normal, innocent. It wasn't NNTHE cake thing happened. Sure, a quick 10 minutes of awkward clapping and make a wish. But right after, he called me into his office. His tone was soft, almost rehearsed. "Just a minute," he said, closing the door behind me. The hum of the air purifier was the only sound left. On his desk sat a small black velvet box. You know the kind that looks heavy before you even touch it. NNHE told me he wanted to thank me for saving his year. Said I'd been his anchor, his constant. That word again, constant. I joked that a handwritten note would have been enough. He smiled, but not the kind of smile you return. It was too still, too practiced. When I opened the box, my breath actually caught. A Patek Philippe. I didn't even want to touch it. It looked unreal, all gleaming rose gold and silence. The kind of silence money makes when it knows it's untouchable. Then I saw the engraving on the inside, and time belongs to us. I remember my palms sweating so much that I smudged the velvet. I laughed nervously. One of those laughs that sounds like a cough. I said something stupid like, "This is way too much." NNHE leaned against his desk, hands in his pockets, and told me I was too sensitive. That he didn't understand why people always try to ruin a good gesture. That it was just a symbol of trust. NBUT trust doesn't feel like your boss's finger brushing your wrist when he fastens the strap on your skin. There was this moment, maybe 3 seconds long, where I swear the room felt colder. Like the air got pulled out. I mumbled a thank you, walked out, and spent the next 10 minutes locked in a bathroom stall trying not to throw up. NNTHAT night. I couldn't sleep. I kept staring at the watch box on my kitchen counter. The city outside sounded like static. Distant sirens, the hum of the fridge, my own heartbeat too loud. I tried to tell myself it was fine, that maybe I was overreacting. That's what I do, right? Overthink NNBUT something about the engraving crawled under my skin. Time belongs to us. Not, you earned this, not thank you. Us. Like I'd just signed a contract I didn't know existed. And I wore the watch the next morning, because I didn't know what else to do. Everyone noticed. Someone in HR asked if it was new. I shrugged. Dee just smiled from across the room. That same smug little half smile that made my stomach twist. Then, during lunch, I saw his wife's name pop up on my phone. She'd liked one of our photos from the company's LinkedIn page. The one where we stood too close during the investors' dinner. I felt this rush of heat in my chest. Guilt, panic, disgust. I couldn't tell which was louder. And then I did something I hadn't done in months. I looked at our expense database. I wasn't even sure what I was looking for. Maybe just confirmation that this wasn't what it looked like. NNBUT, there it was. Clear as day, end corporate account, gift for strategic partner, $250,000. NNMY name wasn't anywhere near it, but I didn't need it to be. That's when it clicked. The watch wasn't a token of trust. It was a leash. NNHE hadn't bought me a gift. He'd bought a story. One where he owned both the narrative and my silence. I remember sitting there, staring at the line item on the screen, my hand shaking so hard I almost dropped the mouse. The cursor blinked on the screen like it was mocking me. And for the first time in 3 years, I realized I wasn't indispensable. All was replaceable. But worse, I was compromised. I spent that night in my apartment, pacing like a caged thing. Every sound felt too sharp. The radiator hissed. The neighbor's TV buzzed through the wall. Even the hum of my laptop made my chest tighten. I couldn't stop staring at the photo of the watch on my phone, zooming in and out on the engraving like it was going to spell out what to do next. And time belongs to us. And I kept whispering it under my breath, trying to figure out who us was supposed to be. Because it sure as hell wasn't me and him. NNBY morning, I'd made a decision, or maybe my body just decided for me. I went to the office, calm on the outside, but with this constant static inside my head. Every step down that hallway felt like walking into a courtroom I hadn't agreed to enter. NND was already there when I arrived. He looked fresh, casual, like someone who just slept 12 hours, wrapped in self-satisfaction. The watch glinted on my wrist when I set my bag down. He noticed. Of course he did. He always noticed. NNHE said something like, "Looks good on you." I don't even remember what I replied. Probably something bland, non-confrontational. Years of people-pleasing had hardwired me to smile when I wanted to scream, NNBUT inside. I was already planning. I started copying files, emails, receipts, message logs, everything that had even a whiff of impropriety. Nothing dramatic, just little background tasks during the day. Click, drag, save. Click, drag, save. My fingers were shaking so much, I had to hold my coffee cup with 2 hands. Every time he sent a Slack message that said, "Need you in my office," my stomach flipped. Every time he brushed past me, I froze. He kept calling me his constant. The irony almost made me laugh. NNTHE. Next day, I took the watch off. Just like that, slipped it into the velvet box, shoved it into the bottom drawer of my desk. I told him it didn't feel right to wear it during work. He just smiled. The kind of smile people give when they think they're 10 steps ahead of you. "You're overthinking," he said. "You always do." NNTHAT line. You always do. Burned. It was the same thing my ex-husband used to say whenever I caught him lying. NNBY Friday. I had everything I needed. Photos, voice memos, a screenshot of the transaction, even a snippet of his voice message saying he was investing in me. I didn't even know what I was planning yet. All I knew was that I wasn't going to let him own this story. And I wrote the email on a Saturday night. Subject line: investment details you may want to review. No names, no drama, just attachments, documents, receipts, the works. I created a new Proton Mail account, hit send, and watched the progress bar crawl across the screen like a countdown clock. Then I deleted everything. Every file, every backup, every trace. The silence afterward felt heavy. I sat there on my couch, with the city noise bleeding in through the window, realizing I'd just detonated something I couldn't take back. And Sunday morning he texted, "Proud of you for staying late last week. You'll see why soon," and I didn't reply. NNBY Monday, things felt off. The building's usual buzz was replaced by whispers. The HR director was in early. The CFO walked past my desk 3 times without saying a word. When I opened my email, there it was. Internal audit notice, expense review. Urgent ND didn't show up that day. Or the next, NNBY Wednesday. The rumors were wildfire. Someone said there'd been a funding discrepancy. Someone else said, inappropriate use of company funds. I just kept my head down, typing reports I knew no one would ever read. NNTHAT. Same night, I got a text from an unknown number. You made a mistake. I stared at it for a long time. The watch was still in my desk drawer. For a second, I considered throwing it out the window. NNBUT, then I realized, no, that wasn't a mistake. NTHAT was evidence. The following week felt like slow-motion chaos. You could practically taste the tension in the air, like burnt coffee and fear. Nobody said his name out loud, but you could hear it echoing in every whispered conversation, every slammed office door. The CEO, the issue, the investigation. I just kept typing, pretending like I didn't know anything. But the truth was, I couldn't focus. My hands kept shaking whenever an email notification popped up. I kept expecting security to tap me on the shoulder. Every night, I'd go home, drop my bag by the door, and just stand there, staring at nothing. The city lights outside flickered like a heartbeat I didn't trust anymore. Then, Thursday morning, I walked into the office and his door, the one that was always closed, was wide open. His desk was clean, laptop gone, family photos gone. The leather chair sat slightly off-center, like someone had left in a hurry. I stood there for a second, feeling this strange mix of relief and nausea. He was gone, but his presence still clung to the air like static. NNTHE internal memo went out later that day. Effective immediately. D will be taking an indefinite leave of absence for personal reasons. Everyone knew what that meant. And just like that, the man who'd built his empire on control vanished. No goodbye, no farewell email, no constant this time. And I thought I'd feel victorious. I didn't. I felt hollow. Like I'd been holding my breath for months and finally exhaled, only to realize there wasn't enough oxygen left. NNTHAT night. When I got home, there was a small white envelope under my door. No return address, just my name, written in his handwriting. Inside, one line on a torn piece of stationery: you destroyed everything. NNO signature. No explanation. I just stood there, letter trembling in my hand, heart pounding like it was trying to break out of my chest. He still thought he owned the narrative. Even in silence, it was about him. Nye sat down on the floor, right there by the door, and started laughing. Not because it was funny, because it was the only thing my body knew how to do in that moment. Laugh or break. NNTHE next day, I went to the bank and rented a small safety deposit box. I put the watch inside, along with the printed copy of the audit report that had leaked online the night before. Misuse of corporate funds. Clean, clinical, devastating. And as I slid the velvet box into the drawer, I realized it wasn't just evidence anymore. It was a monument. A physical reminder of the invisible chains I'd been wearing for years. And maybe this sounds dramatic, But when I closed that metal door, it felt like I was closing the last chapter of someone else's story. And back at my apartment, I found the Mont Blanc pen he'd given me years ago, the first gift. The beginning of it all. I stared at it for a long time, twirling it between my fingers, until my nails dug into my palm. Then I walked down to the river, stood on the bridge, and dropped it into the water. Watched it sink. No cinematic splash, just a soft plop and ripples spreading outward. And it was quiet afterward. Too quiet. NNTHE next morning, I handed in my resignation. No big explanation, no drama, just, it's time for me to move on. And HR didn't even blink. They'd probably expected it. And I packed my things into a single box. Photos, a coffee mug, a plant I'd managed to keep alive. The watch box stayed in the vault. I didn't want it anywhere near me, but I couldn't let it disappear either. When the elevator doors closed behind me for the last time, I felt this strange lightness, the kind that comes right after a storm, when you realize the roof's still intact, but you'll never see your house the same way again. It's been 8 months since then, and I still check the time on my phone instead of a watch. I can't even wear one anymore. Every tick feels like a reminder of how easy it is to mistake control for care. Ann and I moved out of the city, found a quieter place upstate. Nothing fancy, just a small apartment with creaky floors and too many plants. I freelance now, mostly for small startups that still believe in team values. I laugh every time someone says that phrase. If only they knew now. Sometimes, when I'm making coffee in the morning, I think about how quiet it was the first Monday after I quit. No alarms, no Slack pings, no messages with urgent in the subject line. Just sunlight bleeding through thin curtains and the sound of my own breathing. Freedom doesn't feel like fireworks. It feels like silence. A few months after I left, I saw his name trending on LinkedIn. A sanitized statement. Former CEO under investigation for fiscal misconduct. No details, no confession, just corporate gloss. I scrolled through the comments, half of them defending him, half tearing him apart. That's the thing about people like him. They're never villains in their own stories. Just misunderstood. Visionaries. NNTHE company rebranded after that. New logo, new leadership, the same rod underneath, probably. But I didn't care anymore. I was finally out. Still, sometimes I dream about that office. About the way the blinds sliced the light into neat little prison bars across his desk. About the faint citrus scent of his cologne that clung to my clothes. Trauma has a smell, I've learned. It lingers in your hair longer than it should. One afternoon, while cleaning, I found a second copy of the audit report I thought I'd thrown away. The paper was crumpled, but one line caught my eye. Undisclosed personal expenditures, estimated total $482,000. Almost $500,000. $500,000 that used to be his leverage, now reduced to a footnote in a public scandal. Ann and I folded it back up and slipped it into an envelope. Wrote one word on the front. Closure. It's still sitting in my drawer. Maybe someday I'll burn it, not out of anger, just to make space. There's this quote I keep thinking about from one of those self-help audiobooks I used to fall asleep to. You don't owe anyone your silence. Back then, I thought it was about speaking up. Now I think it's about walking away. Because silence isn't always surrender. Sometimes it's survival.n. A few weeks ago, a recruiter from my old company reached out. We'd love to have you back, she said. Different management now. I laughed so hard I actually cried a little. Tell your new CEO, I said. Time doesn't belong to anyone. And I hung up. NNNTHAT. Night, I drove to the bank. The safety deposit box was still there, untouched. I opened it, looked at the watch one last time. It was beautiful. No denying that, craftsmanship so perfect it almost mocked you. The engraving was still there, faint under the glass. Time belongs to us. I didn't take it. I just stared for a while, then closed the box, signed my name on the log, and walked out. The air outside felt cold, sharp, real. North and on the drive home, I realized something. He was right. In a twisted way. Time does belong to us. Just not the way he meant it. It belongs to the people who decide how to spend it, who to give it to, and when to stop wasting it on people who think they can buy it. When I got home, I sat by the window with my coffee, watching the streetlights blink on one by one. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel owned, and I felt present. NNSO, yeah. That's my story. NNHE bought a watch to mark his ownership, and I used time to mark my freedom. And now I'm asking you, would you have kept the watch or buried the story with it?